Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your stack of sources and give you the essential shortcut to being well-informed.
Today, we are really getting into something fascinating. We're tearing apart that glossy magazine image of suburban success.
We're looking at the illicit operations, the corporate deception, and, the sudden, shocking violence that's just lurking right underneath the surface.
That's right. We are diving into the world of Morrissey, a place where these seemingly perfect lives measured by successful executives, top-tier schools, vanilla cupcakes.
Right, freshly baked vanilla
Or
cupcake.
just completely shredded. The narrative we're following, it really proves that the smallest, most secret choice can set off a chain reaction.
And what a chain reaction. We're talking felony charges, career ruin, and even death.
Exactly.
Our mission today is to unpack that chain. The choices, the coincidences, and, the catastrophic consequences that unravel all these careful facades. We've analyzed documents detailing the intertwined fates of 4 key individuals.
Yeah, you have Gwen, who is this suburban mother, and she's just desperate for a momentary escape.
Then there's her husband, Brian. He's a pharmaceutical director who, kind of traded his ideals for stability, a story a lot of people can probably relate to.
And then you have Jude, the suave local restaurateur who was running this terrifyingly high-stakes drug operation on the side.
And finally, Aaron, the troubled veteran who is just trying to find some refuge, some purpose, and gets caught up in all of this.
We're looking at the ultimate domino effect here. What happens when a simple request for a friendly favor leads directly to a horrific car crash, a legal nightmare?
And the complete destruction of multiple families. It really is a study in moral compromise and the unforgiving nature of risk.
It really is.
So get ready to look closely at the price of a favor. This is where it gets really interesting. Let's unpack this deep dive.
Let's do it.
We begin with Gwen, who is, on the surface at least, the absolute epitome of the stressed, but, completely dedicated full-time suburban mom.
Yeah, our sources open with her just navigating the chaos of the morning drop-offs. Her son, Nate, is heading to nature's workshop, and her daughter, Nora, is going to the final day of swim camp.
And what immediately stands out in the source material is this incredible contrast between her meticulous attention to all these parenting duties,
Right?
and the high-stakes secret she is carrying. She's got this plastic container of vanilla cupcakes.
And the detail here is what's so telling. They're adorned with these slightly stale, leftover red, white, and blue sprinkles from July 4th.
It's so specific. It's those little details that tell the whole story, isn't it? Her daughter, Nora, she's only 7, but she's already plagued by anxiety.
And she's worried about these really small things going wrong,
Yeah.
like specifically dropping the cupcakes.
And you can feel Gwen's anxiety because she wants to get on with her hidden mission for the day, and that's adding to the friction. She almost snaps at Nora for not being able to handle this one simple thing.
She catches herself, though. She realizes she has to accommodate her children's quirks, so she just ends up carrying the treats herself.
Which is the perfect metaphor for her entire life, right?
Yeah.
She is carrying the emotional and logistical weight of this whole suburban structure.
While she's secretly planning to completely undermine it, it's incredible. She's worrying about Nora's pool ID card and her goggles while simultaneously heading to an illicit drug buy.
The surface needs, the perfection, the structure, it's all just masking this deeper need.
Exactly. And that deeper need is what drives her hidden mission for the day. Meeting Jude Gates at his restaurant, Gull, for marijuana.
Yeah, the sources are clear on this. She had stopped smoking when she became pregnant, and she kept a 7-plus-year hiatus during pregnancy and nursing.
But now that Nate has weaned, she's sort of searching for that nostalgic sense of release. That moment of being the person she was before the demands of motherhood just completely consumed her.
This impulse to reconnect with her past self it's facilitated entirely by her history.
Right. We learned that she met both Jude and her husband, Brian, almost 9 years earlier. She was working in a bar while she was in law school.
A law school she never finished, which is another important detail.
It is. Jude was her boss back then, and Brian was the man she eventually married.
That's such a crucial detail. She knows Jude. She knows his nature, or at least she thinks she does. And she knows, too, that she used to smoke cannabis regularly during the early days of dating and living with Brian.
So this isn't some random drug buy on a street corner.
Not at all. It's a desperate attempt to rekindle a part of her pre-parenting identity, and she's leveraging a relationship from a previous life chapter to do it.
Now let's pivot a bit and look at Brian, the rock of financial stability in this marriage.
Okay.
So while Gwen is dealing with cupcakes and discreet meetups, Brian is preparing for a really high-stakes meeting at Caledon Pharmaceuticals. His world is all about mergers, market shares, and medical jargon.
And his career choice itself, it's rooted in this major sacrifice. Our sources say Brian had this ideal vision for his life.
Yeah, he wanted to be an MD, right, working in, like, war and poverty zones.
Exactly, a humanitarian. But when Gwen got pregnant, that dream just, it evaporated. It was replaced by, the cold, hard necessity of financial security.
So he joined Furogenics, which was later acquired by Caledon, to coordinate clinical trials for their anti-anxiety drug, Zuprone.
Stability won out over his ideals.
And Zuprone is the epicenter of his current corporate anxiety. It's approved as an anti-anxiety medication, but it's a crowded market. It only holds a minor share.
But Brian was the keen observer. He's the one who first noticed these unusual prescribing trends. For 3 years, he saw physicians were increasingly prescribing Zuprone off-label for weight loss.
Which is where he sees the opportunity. So his strategy is based on that market opportunity, not some new medical discovery.
Right. The core of his presentation is a plan to leverage this off-label prescribing trend, which, again, he essentially discovered, and seek formal FDA approval for Zuprone as a weight loss drug.
And he's anticipating a massive, massive increase in market share if they can pull it off.
This is really the corporate equivalent of Gwen's moral tightrope walk. They are both flirting with the edge, just in different arenas.
Absolutely. Off-label prescribing, where a doctor uses an approved drug for a different, unapproved purpose, that's legal.
Yeah.
But aggressively marketing a drug for an unapproved purpose is not.
And the sources show that's exactly the line they're walking. They're dividing physicians based on prescription history. They're hosting these educational seminars.
Which cleverly reference studies, of course. They're using every loophole to encourage this profitable but, ethically very gray off-label use.
They're essentially using doctors to run an unofficial, uncontrolled trial, all while knowing the risk of attracting the FDA's attention.
It's a classic move. Push the envelope until the FDA finally forces you to either stop or apply for approval.
Right.
So while Brian is walking that line, Gwen arrives at Gulf for her meeting with Jude.
And she immediately feels this total disconnect between her current life and her past. The sources describe her noticing the young cocktail waitress applicants.
Dark lipstick, piercings, miniskirts, cleavage.
Exactly. And she compares herself in her, quote, safe Eileen Fisher tee and khaki slacks. She even notes her own crow's feet. She just feels old and decidedly not downtown.
Jude, on the other hand, is the picture of contained cool. He's calm, he's poised, he has that executive cut hair with the gray flecks, wearing the same familiar cologne.
Oh, he just exudes this timeless charisma that can contrast so sharply with Brian's focused, buttoned-up intensity.
Yeah, and he waves off her lateness. For him, he has all the time in the world for an old friend.
And then comes the actual transaction, the favor. Jude provides the goods in a simple lunch bag.
And inside, there are rolling papers in a plastic baggie holding 4 large, incredibly pungent, sticky, egg-sized buds with frosted purple hairs.
We are talking about an entire ounce of high-quality marijuana. The sources call it sensimilla, which just means seedless and therefore very potent.
An ounce is a significant amount. I mean, that's far more than casual personal use would suggest.
Right, for sure. And Jude insists on the secrecy. He tells her, don't tell anyone I'm only doing this for you. He's establishing this unique intimacy, marking this exchange as something special.
And he immediately weaponizes that intimacy. As Gwen turns to leave, Jude leans in, touches her chin and her cheek, and kisses her.
The sources are so emphatic on this point. She was caught 100% off guard. The casual flirting she might have been expecting, it suddenly became concrete physical contact.
That kiss is so crucial. It's the instant she realizes she completely misinterpreted the dynamic.
It just ruins the possibility of this being some innocent one-off transaction between old friends.
Absolutely. The sources note her immediate visceral regret. She knows she absolutely cannot visit him again. The small act of seeking a nostalgic high suddenly became something that implicates her fidelity, her entire suburban structure.
It shifted from a favor to a secret she now actively needs to bury.
And that moment of physical transgression, the kiss, it really is the personal spark right before the external disaster.
Yeah. So Gwen drives away and she heads toward Thatcher Park. She lights a joint, relaxes on a picnic table, and she's just looking out over this expansive valley.
And for a brief moment, she's in that space she was looking for, that desired nostalgia. She starts thinking about the planned 4-day family getaway to the Tear Lake house with Brian.
She's imagining a new lifestyle, hiking, more wine, more lovemaking. She is trying to use this small, reckless act to reintroduce some kind of intimacy and vitality back into her marriage.
Which really reflects the deep exhaustion she feels from years of just focused child rearing.
But that brief moment of peace is immediately shattered. Her friend Marlene calls. She's delayed at a doctor's office and asks Gwen to pick up the children.
And Gwen, feeling relaxed now, agrees. She decides she can handle it. And this simple decision to go pick up the kids while slightly high is what sets the entire catastrophe in motion.
On Route 157, while she's driving her van, fate just intervenes with lethal force. Another car, driven by an 82-year-old man named James Anderson, crosses the center line and strikes her rear quarter panel.
It spins her car violently. The airbag deploys with a sound that's described as a gunshot, leaving her dazed, cut above her eyebrow.
The physical shock immediately gives way to pure existential panic. She sees the other car has torn through the guardrail and disappeared down a steep ravine.
And right there, next to a Spider-Man action figure and Nora's American Girl books in the seat pocket, the very emblems of her maternal life,
is the large plastic bag containing an ounce of pungent buds.
Her immediate paralyzing fear isn't about her physical injury. It's the legal reality, possession and driving under the influence. She knows that in her town, in her social position, this is complete ruin.
At St. Mary's Hospital, she gets treatment from a Dr. Sue, a reconstructive plastic surgery resident who gives her 6 stitches.
And there's this weird detail where he assures her, with this strange focus on aesthetics, that she'll have no scar and exquisite eyebrows.
Even in the trauma ward, right, the pressure to maintain physical perfection is still there.
It's wild. Then Officer Hendricks, who Gwen actually recognizes from a community profile in Morrissey B, interviews her.
Gwen maintains that the other car crossed into her lane, which is the truth. But the truth is, it's almost meaningless when contraband is involved.
Upon finding the ounce of sensimilla in the car, Gwen is immediately taken into police custody. And she is utterly mortified.
This isn't just a legal problem for her, it's social annihilation. Her single biggest fear is seeing her name on the front page of the Morrissey B's police blotter.
That highly visible local news item that can just destroy a suburban reputation instantly.
While she's processing the humiliation of being booked, Brian is rushing home. He had just successfully finished his big presentation at Caledon.
He's relieved she's alive, of course, but his primary reaction is anger. He is, quote, pissed that she was stoned while driving to pick up the children.
His focus immediately snaps to control and responsibility.
When he confronts her about the pot, Gwen tries to, mitigate the damage. She tries to deflect the accusation of heavy personal use.
So she claims half of the ounce was actually for Marlene and Roger, her lawyer friend's husband. She suggests they smoke together.
Which immediately provides Brian with both an explanation and a solution. Roger Fitzgerald, their family friend and a partner at a prominent downtown firm, he'll take the case.
She tells Brian that Jude provided it as a favor, which just confirms Brian's long-held suspicion that Jude is nothing more than a drug dealer.
And it validates Brian's decision from years ago to push Jude out of Gwen's life.
Roger Fitzgerald's entry into the story just turns the screws instantly. Roger reveals the tragic identity of the other driver.
Right. 82-year-old James Anderson, a retired Union College psychology professor and a local activist. He died in the hospital.
And the sources confirm Anderson was suffering from severe dementia and, quote, never should have been driving. Crucially, investigators also confirmed Anderson crossed the center line.
So Gwen is innocent of causing the crash.
She is. But her possession of the drug completely shifts the legal dynamic. Roger explains that the district attorney is threatening the toughest possible charges, including vehicular manslaughter.
And we need to pause here and just clarify that term, because it is terrifying. Vehicular manslaughter essentially means causing a death through negligent or reckless operation of a vehicle.
So even if Anderson was at fault for crossing the line, Gwen's impaired state, and more importantly, the illegal presence of a controlled substance, it gives the DA immense leverage.
They can argue negligence, especially given the tragic death of an elderly, respected member of the community.
And the DA exploits the local mood perfectly. Roger notes the town of Morrissey is really sensitive to recent drug incidents. He mentions a bust at a high school locker, a middle school bong incident.
So Gwen is the perfect high-profile example they need to make a statement.
The proposition they offer is pure, calculated extortion. The DA will drop all criminal charges, including that devastating vehicular manslaughter threat, if, and only if, Gwen reveals the name of her supplier.
The alternative is ruin. The front page of the Morrissey Bee, a destroyed reputation, and the looming threat of civil lawsuits from Anderson's family, even if she somehow wins the criminal case.
This brings us to Gwen's agonizing moral tightrope walk. She promised Jude she wouldn't tell anyone. Turning him in feels like the ultimate betrayal of an old friend who showed her an act of personal kindness.
She even remembers his words. He asked for her phone number, in case he was the one in need of a favor next time.
But then she remembers the kiss, that unsolicited kiss. And the sources capture her internal rationale perfectly. You shouldn't have kissed me.
That kiss, which she immediately regretted, it becomes the emotional justification for her betrayal. It shifts Jude from a friend who did a favor to a man who inappropriately overstepped.
And in her mind, that dissolves her loyalty obligation. It's an incredible rationalization.
It is. It wasn't the threat of prison or losing her children that finally convinced her. It was her ability to recontextualize Jude as someone who deserved the consequence.
Ultimately, the threat of social and legal ruin for herself and for Brian outweighs her shaky moral duty to Jude.
And so she reaches into her purse and hands Roger Jude's business card from Gull.
The Suburban secret has now officially crossed the line into the federal and criminal justice system.
And as Gwen is betraying Jude to save her own life, Brian's meticulously constructed professional stability simultaneously explodes.
The corporate world, it turns out, is just as morally compromised as the criminal underworld.
Oh yeah. Brian's ambition regarding Zuprone immediately lands him in a crisis. He and his colleague, Jennifer Stallworth, are debating the intense scrutiny their aggressive marketing push is facing.
Their whole strategy relied on educating physicians about the off-label weight loss benefits, and it worked. It successfully boosted prescriptions.
But now the debate inside Caledon is intense. They're trying to justify relying on anecdotal evidence and prescription history data versus, the gold standard of controlled clinical trials.
They're trying to figure out how far they can push the envelope without triggering a regulatory disaster.
And they are desperately trying to avoid any accusation of conducting unauthorized human experimentation. They're leaning heavily on this legal precedent, Richardson v. Miller,
which essentially holds that as long as the prescribing doctor was acting in the patient's best interest and the off-label use was customary among their peers, the company could argue they weren't sponsoring experimentation.
But the sheer volume of off-label prescribing that Brian pushed for, that's the real risk factor. They know that number alone could attract the FDA's focused attention, regardless of precedents.
The scale of the off-label use starts to look a lot like a trial, even if they never called it one.
And the sources reveal this really interesting human dynamic and the ethical cost in Brian's own office. His assistant, Teresa, who worked closely on the Zuprone project, has lost a significant amount of weight over 6 months.
Brian strongly suspects she's using Zuprone herself, possibly at that high, effective weight loss dosage.
It's a personal testament to the drug's efficacy, but also a source of massive ethical conflict for Brian.
And Teresa is actively flirting with him. She even notes that if the FDA investigates, they will be, quote, wading into that gray area where attorneys would do battle. She knows the stakes.
This mix of professional risk, personal ethical failure, potentially enabling Teresa's off-label use, and the aggressive physical flirting, her breast pressing against his arm. It makes Brian intensely uncomfortable.
He fears legal liability, of course, but this added moral layer of the office environment is really straining him.
Then the crisis escalates with a devastating phone call from a Dr. Marta Everson.
And Everson is a key figure. Caledon had hired her, a prominent physician, to host those educational seminars.
Right, and she reveals that she prescribed Zuprone for weight loss at that commonly effective dosage of 120 milligrams daily, which is twice the anxiety dose. And 3 of her patients developed severe anorexia symptoms.
Anorexia, that is a devastating headline-grabbing side effect that Caledon absolutely cannot ignore.
And Dr. Everson's claims immediately hit the media. Brian is forced to respond to a Times reporter who has picked up on her claims and is asking pointedly about the high dosage prescribed for weight loss.
He tries to dispute the reporter's use of the word study, but the damage is done. The article lands on page 3 of the business section, escalating the crisis from an internal debate to a public corporate scandal.
Which guarantees FDA attention.
Absolutely. Brian is immediately confronted by his boss, Stephen Jeffries, and Jennifer Stallworth. Jeffries is panicked, handling calls from the FDA who are now sending someone for a preliminary inquiry.
And Jennifer, Maintaining her sweet Georgia drawl delivers the professional execution. She bluntly assigns Brian accountability for managing the entire aggressive plan to capture market share.
She basically says, you are the one who managed the strategy that brought us to the edge. If the federal investigation goes south, you hold the liability.
Brian realizes that the risk isn't just losing his job, it's potential personal legal exposure.
But in the middle of this meltdown, Dr. Everson calls Brian again, and she offers a lifeline that ties directly into his legal fear.
She proposes a confidential meeting and a career-changing proposal.
Yeah.
She wants him to be an insider whistleblower.
This is where we need to introduce the legal concept of qui tam.
Right. It's a provision of the False Claims Act. It allows a private citizen, known as a realtor, to sue on the government's behalf for fraud committed against the government.
Often concerning Medicare or Medicaid payments for off-label use.
And if the government joins the case and wins, the relator is entitled to a substantial percentage of the fines. We're talking potentially millions of dollars.
So Brian is heavily tempted by the money, by the chance to escape liability, but he's fundamentally conflicted.
So he seeks Gwen's input, even as she's consumed by her own legal mess.
And Gwen, reeling from the crash and her betrayal of Jude, provides him with this unexpected ethical clarity.
She tells him the money and the career implications are secondary. He should only blow the whistle if he truly believes Caledon is, quote, purposely practicing deception or recklessly harming people.
It's a remarkable moment of moral recovery for her. Having just traded someone else's fate for her own stability, she demands that her husband act with the integrity she just sacrificed.
But ultimately, the resolution bypasses Brian's moral choice entirely. Caledon's executive team decides to apply for formal FDA approval for Zuprone as a weight loss drug.
They just do the math. They realize the cost of clinical trials, the application process, and potential future lawsuits are roughly equivalent to the massive fines they would face if the FDA found them culpable of illegal marketing.
So they adopt Brian's original recommendation, not for ethical reasons, but purely for risk avoidance.
And by seeking approval, they neutralize the qui tam threat, and Brian is momentarily safe. The company absorbs the risk, and he keeps his job.
Both husband and wife navigate these massive legal threats, relying on corporate and legal maneuvering rather than pure moral rectitude to survive.
So now we have to shift our focus to the man whose life is about to be systematically destroyed, Jude Gates.
His calm, poised restaurateur persona is just a brilliant piece of stage management. It's covering an incredibly high stakes and morally bankrupt criminal enterprise.
The duality of his life is staggering. We first see him in his role as a dedicated father, driving his daughter, Dana, to St. Lawrence University.
And his greatest fear, ironically, is that Dana will be exposed to drugs and alcohol in college. He's constantly advising her to nurse a drink along and to absolutely not be the pothead.
The hypocrisy is just thick enough to cut with a knife.
It really is.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Dana is dealing with her own complex struggles. She's a talented runner who earned a scholarship, but she suffers from something called a venous malformation,
Which is a discolored, swollen mark below her eye that she's constantly trying to conceal. This mark really dictates how she interacts with the world.
and compounding her personal anxiety is a physical threat to her identity. Iliotibial band syndrome, or ITBS, in her knee.
ITBS is a common runner's injury where the ligament running down the outside of the thigh becomes tight and inflamed. For Dana, it threatens her ability to run, which threatens her scholarship and her confidence.
She's forced to get a cortisone shot just to try and compete in the upcoming Plattsburgh Cardinal Classic, which just shows her fierce dedication to maintaining the identity that running provides for her.
And we get this dark glimpse into Jude's own family history, which kind of contextualizes his concern over Dana's potential drug exposure.
His past with Claire, Dana's mother, was volatile. A quick Vegas marriage fueled by coke and cocktails. Claire struggled with addiction for 7 years, and it culminated in a period where Jude was forced to manage her life.
And the sources reveal this moment of just profound darkness for Jude. He privately regrets that Claire's coat hanger suicide attempt in rehab hadn't succeeded.
Which is a shocking detail. It shows the absolute emotional and psychological exhaustion her addiction caused him, and it explains his fierce, albeit hypocritical, desire to protect Dana from the same fate.
So on one hand, you have this deeply concerned, protective father. On the other, he's running a meticulous, dangerous criminal enterprise.
He operates a highly controlled niche dealing business. He focuses on quality, maintaining a low profile, and he uses his restaurant, Gull, as a low-key hub for small transactions, like the one with Gwen.
But his primary source of income and risk involves international smuggling. His logistics rely on crossing the U.S.-Canada border.
He uses a commercial Ford van registered to his upstate dining company, a cover that allows him to appear legitimate during transport.
And the van itself is a masterpiece of criminal engineering. It's got a false floor, and walls in the cargo hold where the drugs are trafficked.
And the elaborate cover story is that he's transporting a massive commercial appliance, a Vulcan 60-inch range, that conveniently obscures the hidden compartment.
The human corruption involved here is chilling. Jude has secured his easy passage across the border by bribing the border agent, a man named Leonard Deitch.
And not with constant cash payments, but with the horrifying promise of a young Cambodian woman named Roxanne, who Jude refers to as Deitch's future bride.
This is a profoundly disturbing example of Jude leveraging human trafficking and sexual exploitation to ensure the stability of his business. It shows the true scale of his moral rot.
And the extreme risk he's managing. And that risk is currently escalating because of something called the Sweet Deal.
Jude is arranging a massive transaction with Daryl Dada Sweet, a former NFL linebacker known for his showboating who now owns a health club.
And Sweet is expanding his criminal portfolio beyond just steroids. He's focused on supplying athletes with human growth hormone, HGH, and gamma-hydroxybutyrate, GHB.
Which is also known as a date rape drug, but it's used illegally by athletes as a performance enhancer for its sedative effects and its ability to boost growth hormone release.
This deal is different, and it's much riskier for Jude because it requires a large upfront cash payment, a term Jude usually avoids.
It signifies his willingness to take a massive financial risk to establish a foothold in the far more lucrative world of performance-enhancing drugs.
And holding the entire domestic production side of this together is Aaron Capuano, the grower.
The troubled veteran. He's managing Jude's large-scale indoor marijuana grow operation in a remote cabin that's owned by Claire Dumont, Dana's mother.
Aaron's backstory is tragic. He joined the National Guard for college tuition help, but he ended up deployed and suffered a partial face injury.
He's resourceful, but he is homeless and struggling with chronic pain, which has led to opioid use, specifically Vicodin or Vikes, just to cope.
Jude offers Aaron loyalty and stability. Aaron harvests 32 pounds of high-quality product per cycle. Jude is very paternalistic toward him. He checks Aaron's drug use.
While also using his connections, he mentions a Congressman Alfred Haynes to promise help for Aaron's facial injury. It's this very complex relationship of dependence.
But despite the opportunities Jude provides, Aaron is jumpy. He's dealing with severe trauma, and he secretly resents Jude's control and his ability to leverage his loyalty.
Every single piece of Jude's empire, from the van's fake walls to Aaron's loyalty to the corrupted border agent, it's all held together by Jude's tightly managed control.
And that control is about to snap, thanks to Gwen.
Gwen's decision to betray Jude to the police immediately starts the countdown to disaster. But first, she attempts this act of atonement.
Haunted by her decision, she makes a desperate, late-night solo trip to Gull, hoping to warn Jude that the police are investigating him.
She wants to claw back a tiny piece of her integrity, but she just loses her nerve. As she enters the restaurant, Jude is called away to deal with a customer complaining about sour crystal.
Which is a perfect little detail showing the mundane chaos of his legitimate business.
It is, and Gwen leaves without saying a word, achieving no integrity, only deeper fear.
But Jude is sharp. He knows something is wrong, and he's now on high alert. The very next day, Gwen runs into him at a market near her family's Tier Lake house.
He sees her, mentions the lake, and then unnervingly, he follows her in his upstate dining company van for a significant amount of time.
Gwen is absolutely terrified. This confirms her worst fears. She is now involved in his world, and he knows she betrayed him, or at least that she's a massive risk.
That pursuit in the van feels like a physical threat.
Later, still at the lake house, consumed by terror and this need to finally close the loop, Gwen takes a walk in the remote woods to call Jude and apologize for her actions.
She's desperately trying to find a balance between her paralyzing fear and the need to restore some semblance of trust.
During the conversation, Jude asks where she is, and Gwen, realizing the conversation is shifted, that he intends to meet her, looks up and recognizes her surroundings are entirely unfamiliar. She's utterly lost in the dense wilderness.
Back at the cabin, Brian panics when she doesn't return. He calls the sheriff. But the sheriff, hearing the name Jude Gates, immediately suspects Gwen is just having an affair and has run off.
This forces Brian to confess everything to the authorities, which he was trying to avoid. He adamantly denies the affair, but is forced to reveal that Jude knows Gwen turned him in.
And this information that Jude is now a target and has a motive against Gwen finally spurs the sheriff to treat it as a real missing person case, escalating the search significantly.
Gwen spends a freezing, terrifying night lost, narrowly avoiding hypothermia. The sources detail her reflection. She realizes the terror of this near-death experience is the result of her own selfish stupidity and disregard for risk.
Her desire for a momentary thrill has led to genuine, life-threatening danger.
Meanwhile, Dana, Jude's daughter, is experiencing her own low point. Her IKBS injury prevents her from racing in the Plattsburgh Cardinal Classic, destroying her sense of self.
She accepts a concert ticket and encounters Aaron Capuano, the unstable veteran and grower outside the sold-out venue.
Aaron is immediately and powerfully attracted to Dana. He sees past her venous malformation, that birthmark she struggles to conceal, and pays her genuine compliments. Flattery that Dana, at her lowest point, is vulnerable to.
Aaron, dealing with his own pain and unstable mindset, takes advantage. He spikes her beer with GHB.
Dana quickly becomes giddy and euphoric, forgetting Aaron had already asked about her eye, and the situation turns violent when Aaron attempts to rape her, ripping her skirt in the struggle.
But Dana, the runner defined by grit and endurance, fights back ferociously. She delivers a knee to Aaron's nose and manages to run away, even with her debilitating ITBS injury.
She's later found by her friends, but she recognizes the escape as a profound, personal victory. A sweeter victory than crossing any finish line.
At the same time, the police are closing in on Jude. Detective Keller is actively tracking the upstate dining company van.
And the lead didn't come from Gwen directly, but from a small, crucial detail. Brian's 5-year-old son, Nate, recalled the distinctive lettering and colors of the van's license plate.
A devastating coincidence. The police, using a child's memory, track the van to the remote cabin, find the grow operation, and secure the area, observing Aaron returning to the site.
Jude, having been put on high alert by Gwen's aborted visit, managed to escape the immediate ambush. He canceled his meet with Sweet and instead convinced Sweet to pick up the product at the remote cabin.
The trap is set, but Jude returns to the cabin shortly before Sweet is supposed to arrive.
And Aaron, driving back to collect his money before fleeing to Nashville, finds Jude shot dead, executed gangland style.
Detective Keller arrives soon after, discovers Jude's body, and apprehends a frantic Aaron holding him in Franklin County.
The sources confirm the inevitable aftermath. Keller's investigation leads to a front-page Morrissey B article detailing the indoor pot farm, the gangland execution, and the shocking discovery of Jude's double life.
The town's quiet suburban veneer is just obliterated.
At Jude's simple service, held at his restaurant, Gull, Gwen, and Brian attend, seeking some kind of closure.
And Dana, heartbroken but stoic, approaches Gwen. She tells Gwen that her father had mentioned her visit right before his death.
And she asks the critical question, looking straight at Gwen. Did she know what her father did for a living?
Gwen, choosing truth over comfort for the first time in a while, answers no.
And Dana expresses her raw confusion and anger. I'm so mad at him. How could he have done this?
In the aftermath, the fear of losing Gwen in the woods provides this massive reset button for the marriage.
Gwen reflects on the terror, the hypothermia, the panic attacks, and she attributes the near-death experience to her disregard for risk and selfish stupidity.
That near loss shocks both Brian and Gwen back to their core devotion. Their relationship finds renewed passion, stemming from the sheer terror of nearly losing her. They realize they already had everything they needed in each other.
A lesson bought at the highest possible price.
Gwen begins the slow process of seeking peace. She attends the Helderberg Community Farm open house. In a moment of familiar rebellion, she and Marlene sneak away to smoke pot.
And Eric, the farmer, catches them. But instead of chastising them, he makes this unsettling comment. He notes the Sweet deal must have gone through.
Which reveals that Jude's criminal connections and his high-stakes transactions were actually common knowledge among the locals in the area.
Highlighting the ultimate irony. Everyone in the local community was aware of Jude's operations, yet his secrets were protected until Gwen, a suburban mother, betrayed him to save her own perfect facade.
Finally, Gwen closes the loop with the unintentional victim, James Anderson. Anderson's daughter, Sheila, had reached out, offering an apology for lashing out at the funeral.
And Gwen sends a $500 check to the Alzheimer's Association in Anderson's memory, achieving a degree of hard-won peace through acknowledgement and restitution.
So we started this deep dive with a mother baking vanilla cupcakes, and we ended with a gangland execution, corporate maneuvering to avoid federal fines, and a desperate struggle for survival in the wilderness.
The sources just lay bare how interconnected these worlds are. A small, seemingly personal favor, a drug buy, immediately implicated a pharmaceutical executive's corporate risk
Led to a car crash with a dementia sufferer.
and ultimately collapsed a sophisticated criminal organization built on bribery and exploitation.
The irony is absolutely staggering. The one event Gwen was truly innocent in the car crash is what led directly to the exposure and unraveling of all her secrets.
And it forced her to destroy Jude's empire to survive.
We saw vastly different definitions of integrity at play here. Roger, the lawyer, uses legal extortion to secure Gwen's safety. Brian compromises his ethical standing for corporate security.
Jude maintains a twisted loyalty to Aaron while betraying global human rights standards. And Gwen, finally, finds peace through confession and restitution.
But the central psychological question still remains. Why did Gwen pursue this dangerous path in the first place? She realized the deep, sustained thrill in her life was being married to Brian and being a devoted mother.
Yet she still chased that small, reckless morsel of excitement delivered with Jude's unexpected kiss and the resulting forbidden purchase.
So if maintaining a predictable life of success and comfort with children and financial stability still requires these small, reckless acts, whether it's a drug buy, a flirtation, or corporate maneuvering, just to maintain the feeling of being truly alive.
What does that tell us about the fundamental human need for risk and the nature of fulfillment itself in a world where everything is supposed to be perfect?
That's the heavy question these documents leave hanging in the air.